May 30th, 1944. Cap d'Enfer, Normandy coast. Wind lashes the concrete bunker as Obergefreiter Karl Weiss leans closer to the green glowing screen. Inside the cramped radar room, the air smells of damp wool, hot valves, and stale cigarette smoke. The Freya set hums with a nervous electrical whine, its sweep arm circling again and again. Then it appears. A smudge at first. A faint return where nothing should be. Weiss blinks, rubs his eyes, and adjusts the gain. The echo grows sharper, stretching into a clustered pattern offshore. He glances at the clock mounted above the scope. Nearly midnight. The channel should be empty except for patrol boats and the occasional fishing trawler. Lieutenant, Weiss calls, trying to keep his voice steady. Contact bearing 280, multiple returns. Lieutenant Ernst Heller steps forward, boots echoing on the concrete floor. He studies the screen in silence. The pattern is wrong, too dense, too organized. Not weather. Not interference. Range. Heller asks. 30 kilometers, closing. The room stiffens. A radio operator pauses mid-sentence. Someone quietly reaches for a helmet. For months, German coastal radar stations like this one have been trained to watch for exactly this moment. Since 1942, the Atlantic Wall has grown not just in concrete and steel, but in invisible eyes. Freya early warning radar for long-range, Wuisberg sets for precision tracking. The Reich's coastal defense doctrine now depends on these ghostly green screens. And tonight the screen is alive. Heller straightens. Report to Sector Command, possible enemy naval movement. As the message crackles down the wire, Weiss cannot shake the feeling that he is staring at something unreal, like reflections in fog. The returns pulse, advance, then briefly scatter as if the fleet is maneuvering. Across the channel, unseen and unheard, British hands are already at work shaping what Weiss believes he sees. Southern England, same night. A Royal Navy motor launch cuts across black water, its engines throttled low. On deck, sailors heave strange bundles overboard, aluminum strips packed into canvas sacks. As they hit the sea, the sacks burst open, releasing clouds of metallic foil into the men call it window. On German radar screens, it looks like an armada. This is Operation Glimmer, one piece of a vast deception plan known as Operation Fortitude. While Fortitude's better-known elements involve fake armies, rubber tanks, and phantom divisions camped in southeastern England, Glimmer and its sister operation, Taxable, are about something more precise, lying directly to the radar operators like Karl Weiss. Each strip of foil reflects radar waves. Dropped in carefully timed patterns at carefully measured intervals, they simulate the speed and spacing of landing craft. Motor launches tow radar-reflecting balloons, mimicking larger ships. The illusion moves at exactly the pace an invasion fleet should. And it is moving toward the Pas de Calais. Back in the bunker at Cap d'Enfer, Weiss watches the echoes thicken. New blips bloom across the scope, overlapping like schools of fish. More contacts, he reports. Formation expanding. Heller's jaw tightens. Calais. Always Calais. For years, German intelligence has insisted that this narrowest point of the channel is the true invasion target. Everything fits: terrain, logistics, Allied airfields nearby. And now radar confirms it. Heller reaches for the field telephone. Multiple naval contacts approaching. Recommend alerting 15th Army. As the call goes through, Weiss listens to the low rumble of thunder outside and wonders if it is weather or distant guns. The line between reality and imagination feels thin tonight. What Weiss cannot know is that the radar picture he trusts has been rehearsed for weeks. British scientists, naval officers, and air planners have studied German radar frequencies, beam widths, and display characteristics. They know how Freya sees the world. They know how to trick it. Even the radio traffic supports the illusion. Across England, Allied operators transmit endless messages from a force called 1st U.S. Army Group, FUSAG. The commander's name attached to it is no accident: General George S. Patton, a man the Germans consider their most dangerous opponent. Double agents, men like the Spaniard known as Garbo, confirm everything the radar suggests. They report troop movements, embarkation schedules, and whispered rumors of an imminent landing at Calais. Every sense the Germans rely on agrees. Radar. Radio. Human intelligence. All of them say the same thing: the enemy is coming, but not here. Weiss notes the time again. The returns continue to advance, steady and disciplined. Somewhere far above the bunker, German night fighters idle on runways, waiting for orders that may never come. For now, the Ghost Army holds. And as Carl Weiss stares into the glow of the screen, trusting the machine more than his instincts, the real invasion force, silent, massive, and utterly real, moves through darkness toward a different stretch of coast. May 31, 1940. 15th Army Headquarters, Tourcoing, northern France. The map room smells of ink, coffee, and damp paper. Generaloberst Hans von Salmuth stands with his hands clasped behind his back, staring at the Channel coastline pinned to the wall. Red grease pencil marks cluster around Calais like old scars, landing beaches imagined and reimagined since 1942. A signals officer steps forward. Herr Generaloberst, radar stations along the Normandy coast report repeated large-scale naval contacts, patterns consistent with invasion rehearsals. Salmuth turns slowly. Normandy. His voice is skeptical, not dismissive. Or Calais. The officer hesitates. The strongest returns are moving toward the pass to Calais, some secondary echoes further west, but inconsistent. Inconsistent. The word hangs in the air. For months, the German High Command has been drowning in information. Too much of it agrees. Too much of it points in the same direction. The British, it seems, have made no effort to hide their intentions. Patton's headquarters buzzing with activity, camps swelling in Kent, radio chatter growing louder by the week. Salmuth taps the map near Calais. This remains the Schwerpunkt, he says. The enemy wants us to look west, they always do. Orders are drafted, transmitted, filed. Coastal batteries near Calais are placed on heightened alert. Panzer divisions are told to remain in reserve, ready to counterattack the moment Allied boots touch sand, but only after the main landing reveals itself. That conditional clause matters more than anyone in the room realizes. Cap Diennefer radar station. Carl Weiss has not slept. The Freya scope has shown movement every night now, fleets that appear, maneuver, and withdraw with eerie discipline. Sometimes the echoes fragment, then reform. Sometimes they vanish entirely, only to return hours later. Training exercises. Weiss mutters under his breath. Lieutenant Heller overhears him. Training for what? He asks quietly. Weiss does not answer. The Wuisberg set next door chirps as it locks onto a target briefly, something large, slow, exactly where a command ship might be. The data is forwarded automatically, numbers marching across paper tape. Machines do not lie. That is what Weiss has been taught. And yet something feels wrong. The echoes never resolve into individual vessels the way real ships sometimes do. They are too perfect. Too obedient. Still, doubt has no place in a bunker built on certainty. Across the Channel, southern England. In a field outside Dover, inflatable tanks sag slightly in the morning sun. British soldiers with bicycle pumps move between them, topping off air pressure and touching up markings. From above, from a reconnaissance aircraft or a distant radar beam, they look convincing enough. Nearby, a group of radio operators sit inside canvas tents, headphones pressed tight, fingers tapping endless streams of encoded nonsense into transmitters. They curse quietly as they work because the volume is relentless. This is not radio silence. This is radio excess. Every signal is logged by German listeners. Every call sign matches a known unit. Every transmission reinforces the same lie. An army is waiting here, growing restless, preparing to strike across the narrowest water. The Allies have learned the enemy's habits too well. June 1, 1944. Berlin. In the Wolfschanz communications wing, reports stack up on a long table. Naval intelligence summaries. Luftwaffe reconnaissance notes. Radar evaluations. Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel skims them, then passes them along. Still nothing decisive, he says. Adolf Hitler, pale and withdrawn, listens without comment. When Calais is mentioned, he nods slightly. The enemy will strike where we are weakest, he says at last, and where he can bring his armor fastest. Calais fits both criteria. Orders follow. The 15th Army is to remain in place. Panzer divisions near Paris are not to move without explicit authorization from the Führer himself. The coast of Normandy is important but not decisive. The deception tightens like a knot. Cap Diennefer, night of June 2nd. Rain rattles against the bunker roof. Weiss adjusts the scope again as new returns bloom across the Channel. Contact density increasing, he reports. Multiple formations. Heller exhales slowly. So it begins, he says. A runner is dispatched with written confirmation. Telephones buzz. Somewhere down the line, an officer marks another red symbol on a map. Weiss watches the ghost fleet advance, then slow as if waiting for dawn. His pulse quickens. He imagines thousands of soldiers packed into landing craft, seasick and tense, just beyond the radar's reach. What he does not imagine, cannot imagine, is that the real armada is assembling far to the west, hidden by radio silence, strict emission controls, and the simple fact that no one expects it there tonight. The channel has become a stage and the radar screen its curtain. And the play is almost ready to begin. June 4, 1944. Cap d'Enfer 22:40 hours. The wind howls hard enough to make the bunker shudder. Outside, waves slam into the cliffs, sending spray high into the darkness. Inside, the radar room glows the same sickly green as every other night, but tonight the screen is crowded. Carl Weiss leans forward, fingers white around his clipboard. Contacts everywhere, he says. Range bands filling up. The Freya sweep completes another rotation. The returns now stretch in a long arc, curving toward the French coast like a clenched fist. They advance, pause, then advance again. Exactly how an invasion fleet would move while awaiting final orders. Lieutenant Heller nods grimly. Signal Corps, priority traffic. The radio crackles alive. To Weiss, the sound of static feels heavier than artillery. Messages cascade up the chain, sector commands to army groups to Berlin. Each relay strips away doubt, replacing it with certainty. The enemy is out there. English Channel, same night. Low in the water, a small British launch rolls in the heavy seas. Its crew fights the wheel as another sack of window is heaved overboard. The foil strips scatter into the wind, spreading wide before settling into a drifting cloud. A navigator checks his stopwatch. Drop complete, turn 2 degrees starboard. Behind them, another launch repeats the maneuver, and another beyond that. They are spaced precisely, timed to the minute. Each cloud of foil is meant to drift at a calculated speed, pushed by wind and tide so that, on German radar, it looks like a fleet inching forward under human control. Above them, RAF aircraft skim the darkness, releasing more foil at higher altitude. On radar scopes from Cherbourg to Antwerp, the channel begins to glow. June 5, 1944. 15th Army Headquarters, 1:15 hours. Hans von Salmuth is awake, coat on, boots polished. He stands before the map again, listening as an intelligence officer reads the latest summary. Radar stations confirm a major naval concentration opposite the Pass de Calais. Estimated strength, several hundred vessels. Salmuth's eyes flick to Normandy, quiet, almost empty. In the west, he asks. Minor activity only, likely diversionary. There it is. The word everyone expects. Maintain readiness, Salmuth orders. No redeployment without confirmation. The 15th Army, Germany's strongest force in the West, stays where it is. Cap d'Enfer pre-dawn. Weiss's eyes burn. The radar picture is now unmistakable. The echoes are closer than ever, dense enough to suggest landing craft massing just beyond artillery range. Lieutenant, he whispers, they're forming up. Heller says nothing. He is listening to another report coming through the headphones, this one from Calais itself. Identical contacts. Identical patterns. The deception is perfect. At 3:00 an order arrives, all coastal units remain at maximum alert. No leave. No stand down. Weiss allows himself a grim satisfaction. He has done his duty. The machines have spoken and he has listened. Normandy coast, same hours. The sea here is alive with steel. Thousands of real ships move in disciplined silence. Engines are muffled. Radios are silent. No foil falls from the sky. No radar echoes bloom. Instead, the Armada hides in the gaps between German expectations. On the bridges of Allied command ships, officers glance at watches, then toward the dark outline of France. Somewhere to the east, they know German radar operators are staring at empty water, convinced it is full. Berlin, 4:00 hours. Adolf Hitler sleeps. Telephone operators hesitate to wake him. Protocol demands confirmation before disturbing the Führer, especially in the early hours. The reports coming in are alarming but not decisive. Calais still waits. And so the armored reserves do not move. Cap d'Enfer, 5:30 hours. A new sound reaches the bunker. Not through wires or screens but through the ground itself. A distant rolling thunder. Weiss looks up. Artillery. Heller frowns. Too far west. They exchange a glance. For the first time, uncertainty cracks the room. Minutes later, a frantic call breaks through the static. Landings reported in Normandy, multiple beaches. Weiss stares at the radar screen. The Ghost fleet still advances toward Calais, obedient as ever. His mouth goes dry. "They're still here," he says weakly. "The contacts, they're still here." Heller's face drains of color. For a moment no one speaks. Then the truth, long delayed, begins to surface. The channel has spoken, but it has spoken in lies. June 6, 1944. Cap d'Enfer, 6:20 hours. The bunker is no longer calm. Telephones ring without pause, overlapping voices shouting grid references, unit names, beach reports. The radar screen still glows, stubborn and unchanged, its phantom fleet inching forward as if nothing in the world has shifted. Carl Weiss cannot look away from it. Normandy landings confirmed, a signals sergeant announces, breathless. Airborne troops reported inland, heavy naval bombardment. Weiss swallows. Then what is this? He gestures at the scope. No one answers him. Lieutenant Heller steps closer to the Freya console, adjusts the range. The echoes do not break apart. They do not scatter under electronic scrutiny. They behave exactly as they always have. Too exactly. "Continue tracking," Heller says at last, though his voice lacks conviction. "Report all changes." The words feel hollow. 15th Army Headquarters, Turcoing. Hans von Salmuth grips the edge of the map table as fresh reports arrive. Utah. Omaha. Gold. Juneau. Sword. Names that had been penciled in as theoretical now arrive, stamped in red ink. Army Group B confirms full-scale invasion in Normandy, an officer says. Salmuth nods once. And Calais. Radar still shows a major fleet, no landings yet. The general closes his eyes briefly. This is the moment the deception was designed for, the moment of paralysis. If Normandy is real, Calais must be coming next. The second blow. The decisive one. Maintain positions, Salmuth orders. 15th Army does not move. 70,000 men. Hundreds of tanks. They wait for an enemy that does not exist. Cap d'Enfer, mid-morning. The wind shifts. Weiss notices first because the radar picture wavers slightly, not fading, not collapsing, but drifting. The Phantom fleet appears to adjust course. "They're maneuvering," he says automatically. Heller's response is sharp. "Or drifting." The word lands hard. For the first time, Heller voices the doubt that has hovered unspoken for days. He reaches for the technical manual, flipping pages with growing urgency. "Window dispersal patterns," he mutters. "Reflectivity, persistence." Weiss watches the screen as if it might confess. Then slowly something changes. One cluster of echoes thins. Another stretches unnaturally, pulled by wind rather than intent. The disciplined formation begins to smear. "Lieutenant," Weiss whispers. "They're not holding formation." Silence fills the bunker. Everyone is staring now. Heller exhales through his teeth. "Report possible chaff interference." The words feel like treason. German High Command Communications Net. The report moves upward, cautious and hedged. Possible radar deception. Contacts may not represent physical vessels. It is not believed at first. Too many systems have agreed for too long. Too many human sources have confirmed what the machines reported. To accept deception now is to admit that weeks of certainty were built on air and foil. And yet Normandy burns. Cap d'Enfer, early afternoon. By now the radar picture is unraveling. The ghost fleet fades not in a dramatic collapse but in a quiet embarrassment, returns weakening, drifting apart, vanishing into noise. Weiss removes his headphones and sets them down carefully, as if they might break. "All contacts lost," he says. No one cheers. No one swears. There is only the distant, growing rumble of real war to the west. Heller looks at Weiss, his expression unreadable. "You did everything correctly," he says. "The equipment worked as designed." Weiss nods, but the reassurance offers no comfort. Normandy, afternoon of June 6th. Allied troops push inland under fire. Beachheads expand. Airborne units link up. The invasion, delayed, bloody, chaotic, is undeniably real. Yet across northern France, entire German formations remain frozen in place, awaiting orders that will not come in time. The Ghost Army has done its job. Cap d'Enfer, evening. As the sun lowers, Weiss steps outside the bunker for the first time in days. The sea looks ordinary now, gray, restless, empty. He realizes with a hollow ache that he has witnessed a new kind of warfare. Not the clash of armies, but the manipulation of perception. A battle fought inside machines and minds. Behind him, the radar hums softly, ready to watch again. But tonight, Carl Weiss no longer trusts what it shows. June 7, 1944. Past the Calais coastline. The beaches are empty. German infantrymen peer out from concrete casemates, binoculars trained on a gray horizon that should, by all logic, be crawling with enemy ships. The guns are loaded. Ammunition is stacked. Field kitchens are cold, untouched since the alarm was raised days ago. Nothing comes. An Oberleutnant lowers his binoculars slowly. Still nothing, he mutters, more to himself than to anyone else. Behind him, a coastal battery commander checks his watch again. The invasion fleet that radar promised, hour by hour, night after night, has failed to appear. Yet orders remain unchanged. Hold position. Await main landing. 15th Army Headquarters, Tourcoing. Hans von Salmuth listens as yet another request for redeployment arrives from Normandy. Panzerlehr is engaged and requesting immediate reinforcement, the officer says. Army Group B reports heavy pressure inland. Salmuth nods grimly. An authorization. The officer hesitates. None yet from Berlin. Salmuth turns away, jaw clenched. He understands now, understands too well. If Normandy is the first blow, Calais must still be the second. To move too early would be to strip the Reich's throat bare. The Ghost Army still holds them hostage. Berlin later that morning. At last Adolf Hitler is awake and receiving full reports. Maps are spread before him, arrows hastily drawn and redrawn. The Normandy landings may be a feint, he insists. The main invasion will follow at Calais. Some around the table exchange glances. Others say nothing. No one can yet prove him wrong. The 15th Army remains fixed in place. Hours pass. Then days. Cap d'Annefer radar station. Karl Weiss sits alone at the console during a quiet watch. The Freya scope sweeps a nearly empty channel. A few fishing vessels. Weather returns. Nothing more. The silence feels louder than the alarms ever were. He replays the past week in his mind, the perfect formations, the disciplined advances, the confidence with which he had reported them. He remembers how relieved he felt to trust the machine instead of his instincts. Now he understands the trap. Radar had not failed. It had been used. The enemy had learned how Germany saw the world, and fed it a lie shaped precisely to fit. Southern England, days later. The inflatable tanks are deflated and packed away. Dummy aircraft are dismantled. Radio operators finally fall silent, exhausted after months of non-stop transmission. Operation Fortitude is winding down. Its architects already know the result. For nearly 7 crucial weeks after D-Day, German commanders will continue to expect a second, larger invasion at Calais. Even as Normandy solidifies into a permanent foothold, divisions that could have crushed the beachheads remain waiting for ghosts. Normandy, late June 1944. Allied forces break out of the hedgerows. Ports are secured. Airfields expand. The invasion becomes irreversible. Only now does the truth fully settle in German headquarters. There is no second landing. There never was. Cap d'Annefer, early July. Weiss files his final report before transfer inland. The radar station will soon be irrelevant. The war has moved past it. Before leaving, he pauses one last time in the bunker, hand resting on the cold metal of the console. He thinks of how the channel once glowed with phantom fleets, how entire armies shifted or failed to shift. Because of what appeared on this screen. Wars, he realizes, are no longer decided only by men and guns. They are decided by what commanders believe to be true. Outside, artillery rumbles faintly from the west. This time the sound is real. And no radar in the world can mistake it.